And now, time for History Oversimplified with your host, YBF91. Today's episode, the Boer Wars. The second conflict, known as the Second Boer War, gives the Boer Wars its label, since the first conflict was a series of small skirmishes. The origins of this conflict were complex and numerous, but the main reasons were somewhat similar to that of the First Boer War. The British discovered more valuables in South Africa, more specifically gold. Gold that was found near Johannesburg led to an 1886 gold rush that effectively established the city. The Transvaal, being near the gold, inspired foreigners from Britain to move into the Transvaal to establish their own livings and occupations. At first, the Boers let them in, but Britain again had plans to form a South African confederation. The Boers, knowing that the foreigners would agree to such a plan, did not want any of this. Cecil Rhodes, a British magnate and South African colonialist, was governor of the Cape at the time. He too had visions of unifying the Boer colonies into a confederation under British rule. In 1896, he orchestrated a raid executed by Leander Starr Jameson, another British colonialist and statesman. Essentially, the plan involved invading the Transvaal and inspiring the British foreigners in the Transvaal to revolt. However, because of poor communication and the lack of enthusiasm on the foreigners' part to revolt, since they were more interested in celebrating the new year, the raid failed. Paul Kruger and many Boers in the Transvaal also knew about this raid, which inspired further antipathy towards the British. In 1899, another series of negotiations were initiated, but the Boers refused all negotiations. Paul Kruger set an ultimatum to Britain. All of their troops must exit the border between the Transvaal and the Orange Free State within 48 hours. The British then said no you, and thus the Orange Free State and the Transvaal declared war on Britain, thus starting the Second Boer War. All of this is very complicated, but here's a summary. The Second Boer War lasted from 1899 to 1902, and initially the Boers had success. They again relied on their quick mobilization, expert marksmanship, and their element of surprise to ambush British garrisons and drive them out of the major city of Natal and other areas of the Cape Colony. This was known as Britain's Black Week because of the large amounts of casualties that occurred within 1899. By 1900, however, the British became aware of the Boer strategies and their obvious disorganization, and in a series of key battles that I will not mention because there are many of them, the Boers suffered a series of losses. The British then moved towards the Orange Free State and annexed Bloemfontein. By May 1900, the entirety of the Orange Free State was annexed and was renamed the Orange River Colony. By June 1900, the British took over Pretoria, which was a major Boer city. Many Boers were captured as prisoners of war and were sent overseas. By September, the Transvaal was also formally annexed, though the Boers were not done fighting yet. The Boers then utilized a guerrilla warfare strategy in which many Boer victories were assured, but they were again disorganized and resulted in a series of disconnected skirmishes. The main Boer guerrilla leader was Christian de Wet, and he almost reclaimed the Orange Free State. The British, under the control of Lord Kitchener, regrouped and retaliated, and utilized a scorched earth policy to cripple the Boer guerrilla commandos and units. In other words, burn everything to the ground and destroy the sources that kept the Boers alive. The existence of Boer concentration camps also flourished between 1900 and 1902, with some in Bloemfontein and others in South African cities. At the same time, British soldiers died from diseases contracted in the area, including typhoid, measles, and dysentery. Ironically, more British soldiers were killed because of disease as opposed to death in war. This, of course, made Lord Kitchener to be a massive jerkface and indirectly responsible for the death of thousands of British soldiers. But that's a discussion reserved for military historians. In the end, the British, despite their own political impacting of the area with their harsh treatment of Africans and their influencing the Boers to kill members of the Zulu tribe, defeated the Boers with their surrender in May 1902. The Treaty of Vereeniging effectively ended the war, but the Boers didn't lose everything. The Boers were given the privilege of limited self-government by 1906. However, the Orange Free State and the Transvaal were no more, and the Union of South Africa was born. So, the Boer Wars, a series of conflicts brought upon by imperialism and revolution. The consequences of the war? Many complex redrawing of South African borders, and many questions about racial equality left unanswered. But those are stories for another time. Thanks for watching, and the rest is history.